you left in the spring, you were gone until whenever the season ended, 3, 4, 5 months.
We were living in tent camps for 3 months in the Arctic. We never thought anything of that. That was just like what you did.
Each of us had a tent, and it was about a 10 by 12 tent with a good 20-inch, 30-inch pot-bellied stove in there.
We were young guys, and it didn't, didn't really matter what the conditions were. We survived fine.
I never had any difficulty with flying the Mosquito. It was taxiing it. The taxiing of the Mosquito was my nemesis because of the air brake system on it. We got about a dozen selections to get the brakes before at the end of the runway. I taxied so slowly that it was boiling over before we got to the end of the runway, trying to control the airplane.
These three guys, relying on each other for their very survival, doing this job under very hazardous conditions.
Arriving the first day there, and a couple of guys had to bail out of their plane. He said, "Oh, by the way," he said, "a couple of your chums," he said, "had to bail out of a Mosquito today." so that was my introduction to Spartan.
Working in the air with these airplanes was a significant challenge because at 30 to 35,000 feet, it's cold. It doesn't matter what season it is. They're in the summertime, but the air cools at 2 degrees per 1,000 feet, so you get up to 30,000 feet. It's going to be 60 degrees cooler up there than it is on the ground. That's pretty serious. So we're talking well into the minus 20s, minus 30s, even minus 40 degree temperature.
It was hard work. The Mosquito was incredibly noisy. Everybody was pressure breathing oxygen.
It was tough on your body because unpressurized at 35,000 feet is not a lot of fun.
It's positive oxygen flow. You have to exhale against the oxygen pressure itself, and as soon as you relax it, your lungs fill with pure oxygen.
It was a long, expensive, and very difficult process. They were creating airstrips out of the middle of Arctic wastelands in order to operate these airplanes. A number of the airplanes crashed. There were a number of fatalities as well.
I was with that company for 9 years. There were 28 people killed. When you see one crew getting killed and you're flying on the same type of machine, you don't think about those things, so you never think about it. You think you're always immortal.
While I was there, we lost quite a few people, and so yeah, that's what I did.
There was some accidents going back to the very, very start. Runaway props.
I was on one flight out of Churchill, going through 26,000. We lost the engine. The pilot feathered it, and there was a problem with Mosquito. It would go into feather, then go back out of feather, and go into full flying. Well, then you had a runaway prop. So the one I was on, the pilot said the revs went up to 7,000 RPM. And we lost the spinner. The spinner came off and went by the perspex, and we lost several other parts.
The motors they were using were not, I guess, were not the best, but just as I arrived, they got some new ones. We didn't have much trouble with them at all. If there were any accidents, it was usually not the motors that were causing the problems.
There were a number of accidents with the Mosquitoes early on, and some aircrew were lost. And there was a memo that went around from Weldy Phipps, who's a very well-known Canadian aviation personality who worked at Spartan at the time. And he questioned whether Spartan was doing a good enough job of training its pilots.
Spartan did have a number of incidents that were not very pretty.